Hello, welcome back if you're a repeat viewer, and if you're not, welcome to Mark's NOTCAST. I am Mark. Hello, it's me, and a middle-aged man talking to his mobile phone about records he loves, likes, or merely owns in certain circumstances. And obviously, I'm going through band discographies and all that type of thing. Today is the 26th of November, 2025. Good Lord. And that means that 20 years ago, yesterday, I walked through the front door of this house for the first time as a homeowner. A lot has happened in 20 years. An awful lot. I've changed, grown. I think I'm a better dude now. My record collection is certainly better. I've got two cats now. Did have three until last year, but I have two, and one of them has just walked out of the room. That's typical, isn't it? They know as soon as I start talking about it, it's like, run away, run away. So in my regular series, when I'm not talking about band discographies or ranking films or anything else that comes to mind, I have what I call a random record rummage, where in my patented shining tote bag, which I bought from the Design Museum in 2019 at the Stanley Kubrick exhibition, I have asked my youngest son to pick out a book, a DVD, a CD, a 7-inch, a 12-inch, etc. And I genuinely, and talk about them. I have no idea what's in here. The only thing I do know is I think the 12-inch is a picture disc. Because I had to put my hand in there to pick it up, and it felt like a picture disc as opposed to, just a record in a standard sleeve. So I don't know what that is. Let's go and see what we've got. So right, I can feel a CD. Let's find out what the CD is. Okay. So Echo and the Bunnymen live in concert for the BBC. This is a good one, actually. One of the last shows by the original classic lineup of Echo and the Bunnymen of Ian, Will Sargent, Pete DeFreitas, and, the bass player whose name I've forgotten, Les Patterson. I have seen Echo and the Bunnymen. I saw them in 2003 at Nebworth. I've seen Ian McCulloch's solo. Ian McCulloch's solo was one of the worst gigs I ever saw in my life. I think, 29th of March, 1992. Downgraded from Leicester's De Montfort Hall, capacity 2,400, to the Leicester Polytechnic Arena, capacity 900. Tickets sold about 350. A waste of £6.50 of my money on a Sunday night. As I remember, they were playing Rocket Ship, which, by the way, is a fantastic B-side. It's on the B-side of Faith and Healing, which is my favourite Ian McCulloch solo track. I really like the Candleland album. I think it's great. And he'd clearly been drinking, and he curled up in a ball, and I think he went to sleep during the song because he'd drunk so much. And Ian was hanging off the microphone, barely coherent, barely singing. I remember very tentatively, I think the bass player at the time kind of walked over at the end of the song and gently nudged him awake, and they played an extended intro to a song. That was an atrocious gig. I, being a mere slip of a lad at 18 with a full head of hair, I know you can't believe it, but I did have a full head of hair once, and I was like, this is shit. But £6.50 was a lot of money then for a gig, especially if, my student grant was £670 a month. Sorry, it wasn't 600. It was £670 for 3 months for a term. I had to live off that for 3 months. So that was, 1 day's worth of my entire expenditure was that. That was a depressing experience indeed. I'm surprised I made my life go as far as it did with that little money at that point in time. I became an expert in stretching out so that sometimes I find myself in a position where I heard a great rate too much month at the end of my money. And what I wanted to do was to try and survive that situation as best I could. Being very good at hunting down bargains, buying 2 for 1 meal deals in supermarkets, buying individual ingredients and cooking up huge amounts of pasta somewhat incompetently. Drinking in the student bar because it was £1.14 a pint as opposed to £1.74 at the pub on my corner. Occasionally treating myself to a Chinese with my then girlfriend for a whole £6. Really pushing the boat out there. With the inflationary factor and so on. It was really difficult. Obviously, I managed to get a lot of gigs in. I bought a lot of records. I spent a lot of time rooting around in Rockaboom in Leicester's 10p singles bin, Bought a lot of 7-inch singles for 10 pence. Bought a lot of 12-inch singles once they fell out of the chart for about 50 pence. A lot of CD singles when they fell out of the chart for about 99 pence from Woolies on a Monday morning. I really knew how to sweat it. And at that point, you know, there were all these records, and the only way you could listen to the music was to own the record, or to know somebody who owned the record, or to go to the local library and get the record out from the library. So this is a relatively new purchase to me. I had a cassette of the radio broadcast that I got from a friend at school. I had, you know, the Game and, you know, Crocodiles, Ocean Rain, etc., Porcupine, those albums in various forms on cassette that I listened to a lot. But I couldn't get too deep into the Bunnymen because I just had to really focus my money and my time and my attention on what I could afford. And so obviously for me it was The Cure, Depeche, U2, New Order. Even U2 I didn't buy Actung Baby until 6 months after it come out, when I found a second-hand cassette for £3.49 in a record shop in an arcade in Leicester. And I lived off that tape. I lived off it. You know, it's the only version of Actung Baby I had for an incredibly long period of time. So, you know, it wasn't how much something meant to me, it's just I had to make value decisions about what I had to spend my money on. And as an adult now, and, you know, as a kid then, I was still getting to the point of, you spend the money on the things you've got to spend it on first, and then you spend the money on the things you want to spend it on second. And the things you've got to spend it on, obviously, you know, rent, food, bills, gas, electricity, hair dye, I guess, if you're a goth, and that type of thing. So, Echo and the Bunnymen, BBC live in concert. I got this about 10-15 years ago. I think it was about £7-8 at the time, CD. I think it's the last recorded show by the classic Bunnymen lineup of the last album that they made in that configuration, which was The Game, which was released in 1987, recorded at Liverpool's Royal Court on, and I'm going to guess, 13th of January 1988. No, 11th of January 1988. Originally broadcast on the 16th of January 1988. And I'd love this to be a better known album, because it is, to me, is the definitive original lineup Bunnymen live album. And you know, you look at bands that release albums and you kind of go, well, the more live albums you release, the less good you are, because you're just making up for the fact you can't write new songs, but you want to put something out there. So if you've released 4 live albums and no actual studio album, it's a good chance you're not very good anymore, and you're living off past glories. At this point, the Bunnymen were looking forward, not back. I think McCulloch quit, you know, a few weeks after the show, but it doesn't show when you listen to it. And I mean, just look at this track listing: Rescue, Heaven Up Here, With the Hip, Bombers Bay, All I Want, Back of Love, Crocodiles, Zimbone, Seven Seas, Bedbugs and Ballyhoo, The Cutter, Show of Strength, Lips Like Sugar, and Thorn of Crowns. Wow, what a set list, what a great recording. If somebody somewhere is thinking about, well, what Echo and the Bunnymen thing should we put out for Record Store Day, I'm going to give you this one for free. Release this. You people will buy it. Yeah, great record. Wish it was better known. Not easy to get hold of now. It's been deleted for a long time because it came out on a label called Winsong International. Winsong International were effectively a subsidiary of BBC Enterprises. BBC licensed it to Winsong, and the band got, well, I'll tell you, apparently New Order's live in concert album from 1992, recorded in 1987 at Glastonbury Festival. New Order got £5,000 for it as a down payment, and they wanted the money, so they took it. So the first New Order live album exists because someone paid New Order £5,000. I dare say Echo and the Bunnymen, when this released in 1991, it was the bigger lineup of the band. I think they had a different drummer, I think they had a keyboard player, they had another singer who I think was called Noel Burke, but I'm not quite sure. It was okay, but it wasn't quite Echo and the Bunnymen, and that bit's been wiped out of the official history in much the same way as Judas Priest period with Tim the Ripper Owens has been wiped out of history, and in much the same way as that Iron Maiden haven't played a song from the Blaze era for a very, very long period of time, as if it just never happened. Never happened. It's like the Star Wars Holiday Special, but for indie. So yes, Echo and the Bunnymen. I love Echo and the Bunnymen. I was so disappointed when I saw Ian McCulloch, and equally unimpressed when I saw Echo and the Bunnymen themselves in 2003. That I decided, no, they're going to be a band that I like, not a band that I love. I gave them a chance. Right, next thing. Let's see what the next thing is. And I'm looking here. There's a book. By the look of it, it's probably a movie novelisation paperback, but maybe it isn't. Oh my, it definitely isn't. Right, this is a heavy, 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 heavy read indeed. Okay, this is Miklos Nizali and Auschwitz, a doctor's eyewitness account. I saw Nuremberg at the cinema actually last night, a film that stars maybe not the word, Russell Crowe and Remy Malek and Colin Hanks and some other people, about the Nuremberg trials, which took place in, I think, 1946 in Nuremberg after Germany was defeated. Russell Crowe chewing the scenery. Clearly that film is Oscar bait, but that's not really the point. This is an eyewitness account of the life in Auschwitz, in the Holocaust, and it's a harrowing read. If you read this, Primo Levi's If This Is a Man, and other things, and you kind of just staggered by the human capacity for evil and cruelty, and how you can read this stuff and you think it's a warning really to future generations, that adage, never again. But it's very, very easy for people to forget what never again really, really means, because we're now at the age where, if not all, the vast majority of Auschwitz survivors have died through natural causes. There aren't people walking around on the streets with numbers tattooed on their arms where they've reduced the identity and the personality and the individuality of the body down to just merely a number, a unit of economic production. Auschwitz was industrialized, mechanized, mass murder on a genocidal scale, and to try and deny that or say that it isn't really that bad is disingenuous. It's outright lying. And I have been, from a distance, fascinated by how a nation could be effectively become a fascist state, and how genocide could become just part of business as usual. And William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, said that his view, he said it, I think in the commentary for The Exorcist, he said, in his view, there were almost a case of mass demonic possession of millions of people at the time of the Holocaust that allowed these events to happen. And I think, well, that's not implausible, is it? It's possible if you believe in God and heaven and the afterlife, and therefore the devil and Satan and temptation and possession, etc. That is very definitely a possibility, isn't it? And Spalding Gray, in his film Swimming to Cambodia, which, if I remember correctly, is about him spending a year in Cambodia filming this film, The Killing Fields, which, by the way, is on my watch list. I have a pile of DVDs over there, which I should be watching at some point. I think Spalding Gray is in The Killing Fields. And in it, he posits that there's a cloud of evil that circles the world, that orbits the world, and it will land for periods of time in locations and feed, much like Stephen King's It. Every few years there will be a localized state of mass evil. Germany, 1933 to 1945. Let's say Russia and the pogroms and the 5-year plans, 1946 to about 1951. Vietnam. And now possibly America. And Auschwitz, A Doctor's Eyewitness Account, is a harrowing book. It is something that I felt necessary to read, necessary to understand. It's not something I want to go back and visit very often, but it almost feels like a degree of, I owe it to history to read this and to understand it and to take seriously the words that are in there. It is unforgettably grim. It really, really is. And well, that's a very, very, very tough thing to say. Really, it really is. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to pick out, and hopefully this is going to be a little bit lighter and a little bit easier. Ghostbusters. Answer the call. Well, talk about taking a left turn. I may have talked about this before, actually, Lady Ghostbusters, as I flippantly call it. Actually, really good film. I really enjoy it. It's made by Paul Feig, who did my favourite film of 2015, Spy, starring Jason Statham. Love this film. It's fun. It's interesting. I think Ozzy Osbourne's in it, actually, as well. And where I think the Ghostbusters franchise has taken, or perhaps fallen down a little bit, is that instead of thinking about how everything has to be tied around, Stantz, Venkman, Spengler, as we've seen with Frozen Empire, they could just do geographical ones. They could do Ghostbusters Sweden, where they fight Krampus, for example. You could do Ghostbusters, I think it's Finland, where you look at the folklore that you've got from that country and are getting built, the ice dragon or whatever it's called. You could go to Ghostbusters Cockneyland and you could fight the ghost of Jack the Ripper, for example. This is the type of stuff they should be doing. Get the best comedy talent from each country. I mean, can you imagine a Ghostbusters with Ramesh Ranganathan in? That would be more like it, wouldn't it? Or Nish Kumar as a Ghostbuster. That would be a bit fun to me, actually. You go Ghostbusters Canada, okay, by the time you get to, like CSI and you get like to Ghostbusters Redditch, okay, that's not going to be great, but no, good film, I enjoyed it, underrated, victim of sexism and stupidity, as anything involving female leads generally tends to be. Right, so I'm going to go through it. The LP is going to be last. Right, this is, I think, a DVD. Oh my, now I've talked about this before. This is Caligula. Oh boy, this, of all the films on the planet, this is one of them. This is a historical odyssey, a huge swords and sandals epic around the Roman Empire's most debauched emperor, Caligula, who apparently appointed a horse to be one of the ministers. I think may have married his own sister or something ridiculous, who was murdered by the people in his enclave for simply having gone too far. All versions of Caligula that were released up until last year were deeply, deeply flawed films. There was a 90-minute cut that came out in America. I have a DVD of it. It's clearly mastered from VHS. It's so short, it's incomprehensible to the point of gibberish. This is one of the definitive DVD editions of the film. It has, I think, 4 discs on it. It has the uncut, alternative and theatrical versions of Caligula. I'm going to explain the difference. The first one, the uncut version, was the version that was put together by the film's producer. So during the filming of Caligula, which apparently was, let me just quickly guess, directed by, and it's really difficult to find a credit for this, possibly Bob Guccione, I think it's maybe pronounced, I'm not sure. The sets were open at night, and because part of it was funded by, I think, Penthouse and some other people, is that they paid porn actors to have orgies on the sets in the evening, filmed it, and then they filmed less porny activity in the day with Malcolm McDowell and Helen Mirren and Peter O'Toole and John Gielgud walking around, and then they interspliced the porn from completely different films where they weren't in there, to make it look like Malcolm McDowell was really looking at 2 people fucking or people pissing on each other or whatever. And it's grotesque in its contents, and as a kind of like an example of bacchanalian excess, it is very good at depicting that. But there's a great film inside Caligula, and none of the versions on this disc capture it. The ultimate cut probably comes the closest to it, but it's still a rough ride, and it's very explicit, and it is really kind of absolutely hedonistic and debauched in a way that makes certain internet websites look like, Teletubbies. So the uncut version is quite literally the genital warts and all, I think, if I can put it that way. The theatrical version has been significantly edited to allow it to get a theatrical release, and the alternative version is a reconstruction as best as could be made at the time of the version of the film that was originally intended before the pornographers got involved and stuck loads of naughty rude scenes in. I have a 20-minute video about Caligula, going back probably about a year, possibly number 418 or thereabouts, that kind of talks through it. And so therefore, if you are going to watch one version of Caligula, watch the ultimate cut. But I have to be warned, don't be eating your breakfast whilst you're doing it, and certainly stay away from the lasagna, because it is a grotesque film. It's like, you know, if someone said, well, if it was a painting, it would be Picasso's Guernica. It is truly, in many ways, a stomach-churning, revolting film in many, many ways. There, I've sold it to you, haven't you? I bet you're all saying, oh, God, I really want to watch Caligula now. Right. Oh, I think I've got 2 7-inches. So I'm going to pick one out first and sort of this. Oh, excellent. Slow Train to Dawn by The. This is the 4th and final single to be released from their 1986 masterpiece, Infected. This has co-vocals by Nina Cherry, and I think, a very good song, actually. Really, really enjoy it. Drums by Dave Palmer, who later became part of The more permanent band. Infected was a pivotal album for me when I first saw it. It was broadcast on Channel 4 television about 11:15 in 1987. And at that point, I liked what I liked because I saw it or heard it. That's how I got to like Pink Floyd. That's how I got to like Pet Shop Boys, New Order, Depeche Mode, etc. And Slow Train to Dawn, 4th and final single from the album. I don't think I've ever seen it played live, actually, which, given that I've seen the I think 9-10 times over 3 separate tours, is a bit of a surprise, but nonetheless, great song. Really, really enjoy it. This, if I remember correctly, is backed with either Harbour Lights or Sleeping Juice. Let's quickly check. Harbour Lights is on the B-side, and that is one of many The songs, which is an instrumental doodle, which becomes part of a soundtrack. For the period 2007 through to now, there exist in 2 configurations: the band that tours and makes records, and Matt Johnson effectively as a solo artist doing soundtrack albums, which he sits in his studio 3 days a week, makes lots of instrumental stuff, then comes out and goes, right, let's, while watching rough cuts of films, documentaries, things which have been made by his brothers, etc., and soundtracks those, and makes music in that way. So there are something like 7, 8 instrumental The albums of soundtrack music. There's also 2002's compilation CD, Film Music, which was only available at the Royal Festival Hall show in 2002 as part of Bowie's Meltdown. I have a copy, but I didn't go to the gig. I don't know why I didn't go to the gig. Possibly because I'd seen The 5 times in the year 2000, and I was thoroughly depressed with the dirty blues rock that they were playing at that point, and I didn't really want to put down any money to see them again, and I wish that I'd seen the 2002 show. If somebody said to me, he sacked the rest of the band, I'll be like, right, I'm going. But I didn't get that opportunity because I didn't realise that's what it was. I didn't want to spend £20 to watch another set of songs from Naked Self and be thoroughly depressed at how bad the had become compared to how good they once had been. That's Slow Train to Dawn. Love it to bits. Harbour Lights was on the 2002 compilation Film Music. Sony Records, who hold the rights to Soul Mining, Infected, Mind Bomb, Dusk, I think Hanky Panky as well. Someone needs to reach through a screen and slap them and get them to put those albums back out on vinyl, put expanded editions out with the relevant sell-through VHSs, primarily 1987's Infected, which apparently they've lost the master film for, and the highest quality version that exists is a rip from a Laserdisc. Idiots! And then, obviously 1990s Live at the Royal Albert Hall, which became the Mind Bomb Tour DVD. Well, VHS, it still isn't on DVD. What are you guys thinking? You should have stuck this out 20 bloody years ago, but you chose not to. And 1993 sell-through VHS video from Dusk Till Dawn, a documentary following Johnny Marr and Matt Johnson as they spend a week in New York filming the video for some songs. Again, stick it on DVD, do expanded version of the albums, put B-sides on, put live tracks. And that's one of the reasons that I get slightly annoyed, and I shouldn't get slightly annoyed. There's a second 7-inch single here. I'm going to guess it's the. Yes, it is. Oh boy. It is the third single release from the album. It is Infected. Let's just be glad you can't see the rest of the cover, because the rest of the cover is quite rude. And Infected, the title track from the Infected album, again released in 1986, a song about the AIDS crisis, a song about desire, and using desire as a metaphor for a great many other things: addiction, drugs, drink, sex, etc. There was in 1987, 1986, especially if you read the newspapers in Britain, there was a sense of, for example, newspapers calling it the gay plague, the gay cancer. It's like, God's punishment to the homosexuals. And certainly, Infected has with it a metaphor around HIV and AIDS, which at one point was most definitely seen as a death sentence. Freddie Mercury got HIV, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the difference between HIV and AIDS because I don't need to, and there's only so much space in my brain. But obviously within 5 years he was dead, because the medical treatments that existed at the time could not target effectively that. It could only slow it down. So having that diagnosis was effectively a death sentence. And especially the Pet Shop Boys album, actually, which has songs like It Couldn't Happen Here, it's talking about actually effectively the equivalent of a moral apocalypse, where on one part people were going, it's God's punishment because you're homosexual, obviously backed up with Section 28, a repugnant piece of legislation, which then made it feel that it was, we're right to condemn, lambast and rejoice, whereas entire communities were wiped out. Artists, people were just dying left, right and centre, and because they were gay, the rampant hypocrisy and cruelty of heterosexual megaculture was framing it as God's just deserts served to the morally bankrupt gays. It was appalling. And if you were in any way different in the 80s, there was a culture of fear that sat about it. If you were at the bus stop that was near the gay club, like in Birmingham, well, I deliberately didn't stand at that bus stop. When I went on nights out, I deliberately walked to a different bus stop, because if you were standing at that bus stop, people thought that I think you'd come out of, I think it's the Nightingale. And they were like, well, you're gay. So, the amount of people that got beaten up at that bus stop was enormous. So from my perspective, I was like, I'm not standing at that bus stop. And that's the kind of culture that we grew up with. There were people or friend groups where suddenly everybody in that friend group died. I think Keith Haring died of it, for example. Neil Tennant wrote It Couldn't Happen Here about watching a number of his friends die of it and spending, going from, as soon as I finish Top of the Pops, I'm going to the hospital for visiting hours to spend some time with my friend before he dies. What a crushing, horrible experience to have. And Infected kind of talks about that, but not in an explicit manner. So the last one that we have, this is kind of a moment, isn't it? So the last one that we have, and again, I wasn't expecting this, but I don't know what I was expecting. Guns N' Roses, Don't Cry, 12-inch single. This was the only photo shoot that was officially made of the lineup that made the Use Your Illusion albums. And the reason, by the way, that it says Dead in the background is because somebody somewhere, I think the photographer, thought there was a very good chance that lineup wouldn't make the distance. And they were accurate, by the way, because not long after, Izzy Stradlin left the group, then Slash left the group, then Duff left the group, Dizzy stayed, Matt saw him, got himself fired. So 5 years later, only Dizzy and Axl were the two people that were left from the group, I think. No, actually, Duff left in 1998 when he became a father and decided he needed to put some stability into his life. This is Don't Cry, the second single released from the Use Your Illusion album in 1991. It is backed with, side A has the original version and the alt lyrics version 2. Don't Cry is on both Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2 with different vocals and different lyrics. You can argue which ones you prefer. I don't really care, to be honest. The B-side is the demo of Don't Cry. recorded, I think, with Steve Adler on drums in about 1987, 1988. Not sure if it's been reissued, not sure if it's on the Appetite for Destruction mega sets, but I do know that, that was one of the recordings, and the band did play Don't Cry very early in their career, and decided to hold it back for the second album. Because even though it was written before Appetite for Destruction came out, Don't Cry didn't fit with the Appetite for Destruction songs. So imagine having Don't Cry and going, it's not quite right for the first album, we'll put it on the second. That takes a considerable amount of forward thinking. But yes, there you go, the Don't Cry 12-inch picture disc, which again I picked up later rather than sooner. I picked up the discounted card sleeve CD single with the 3 tracks on when it fell out the charts, and again bought copies of YouTube. Well, I mean, my brother had a record collection and I had a record collection, and between the two of us we had a fantastic record collection. His veered more towards metal, mine veered more towards bands with less embarrassing hairstyles and spandex addictions. And together, those two, I was able to listen to a lot of good stuff and some really, truly dreadful stuff. As anybody that was woken up every morning by the Almighty's Crank album can tell you, that is one of the most brutal alarm clocks on the planet. It's roughly equivalent to being woken up by having a cat jump off you from a wardrobe with its claws out every damn morning. Nonetheless, that is today's random record rummage, an assortment of old music, old books and new films, and there you go. So right, I'm going to wrap up here. I needed to get something done. I needed to just clear my head of some stuff that's going on outside of the intertubes. There's some busy stuff going on at work, and sometimes I just need to think about something else for a bit. And here we are. So thank you. Welcome to this. Thank you for spending half an hour with me on a Wednesday. Hopefully it's made your housework go faster or easier. Maybe you've been folding clothes, pairing socks whilst this has been on. Who knows? Whatever you've been doing, I hope you've done it with style, because, we all deserve the best in life. And if we can't have the best, then, let's not go for the worst, shall we? Let's go for something else in between. Right, I haven't thought, pardon me, of a great ending, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here with my usual platitudes. Like and subscribe, I guess. Also, of course, be excellent to each other, take care of yourselves and each other, and stay beautiful, beautiful ones. More to come later. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not Friday, maybe Saturday, not Sunday. Okay, see you soon. All right, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.